Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our seminar today. Today, we are talking about everything you need to grow and scale your business to the cloud. My name is Justin. I'm the CEO of Pointstar, and we are actually working on this new medium of using the YouTube Live, right? Because it's quite good, right? It's a software that is produced by Google, and actually, what I'm doing is I'm linking up my Google Hangouts and using it to broadcast to the internet. And of course, this seminar will be recorded, and then we can actually, you can watch it again at a later time. So Pointstar is a cloud technology solutions company, and what we do is we help companies to move and migrate their IT to the cloud. And for many years, we've worked with the likes of Google Cloud, Oracle NetSuite, Cisco Meraki, as well as a few other solutions. We help customers to drive the solutioning as well as the technical migration onto the cloud. And for today's webinar, we're going to be focusing on presenting to you about the Google Cloud. A lot of us may not have heard of the Google Cloud before, and some of you may have been using things like G Suite, but you may not have heard of what is the Google Cloud and so on. So actually last year, Google started to rebrand all its initiatives around enterprise cloud computing into this division called Google Cloud. So if you have been using G Suite, if you've been using Google Maps, Google Chrome, as well as a GCP, Google Cloud Platform, it would actually be all placed under this big umbrella called Google Cloud. And what's interesting is that this is one of the fastest growing business of Google. And now, despite maybe not many people having heard of it, many people speak of the Google Cloud in the same sentence as Amazon Web Service or even Microsoft Azure. And because Google is able to offer a cloud service where the scale is on what we call a planetary scale, we find this is actually a very interesting platform where you as a business can actually consider moving applications to, or even building new applications. So without further ado, I'm going to start doing my screen sharing. So it will just be screen sharing. The video will just be changed over to that. So just give me a second as I pick my slideshow. Okay. So I hope everyone can see my screen right now. And of course, I'm using Google Slides to present this presentation. So today's presentation is about everything you need to scale and build your business. And today, a lot of people are actually moving into what we call the digital business. And digital business is the talk of the town everywhere, right? Whether you are a traditional business or you are a new like technology company. And let's talk a little bit about Google and what is its mission first, right? I feel that it's very important that we share this. Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And what's interesting about a company which is almost 18 years old is that it's got 7 cloud products with more than 1 billion users, right? Things like Google Search, Android, Gmail, Maps, Chrome, YouTube, all these, right, are products that have more than 1 billion users around the world. So that is a huge, huge scale that very few companies can match up against. In order to be able to serve so many users, Google has been investing in what we call infrastructure, and that's the cloud infrastructure to be able to serve all these consumers all around the world and to make sure that there's no downtime, right? So that infrastructure consists of all the hardware, all the software, the network, and also the people running the operations to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Meanwhile, companies like yourself, whether it's SMEs or corporate companies, are facing a lot of challenges. There is a lot more need for what we call data-driven analysis. There's a need to focus on staying ahead of the competition, to attract and retain customers and employees with a great experience, to keep security threats at bay, as well as turn IT into a more competitive advantage. So, these are some of the challenges that we see companies across the world are actually facing, and hopefully we can address this in our presentation. So Google is focused on helping companies meet these kind of challenges. And let me share a quote from McKinsey. Leading companies are using their capabilities not only to improve their core operations, but also to launch entirely new business models. So if you think about that, there's a lot of disruption happening in business. And you want to use digital capabilities or even your manpower and your talents, right, to launch new business models so that you can actually be at the forefront of innovation. And here's another quote that we thought is interesting. The only sustainable business advantage in an age of unprecedented technical change is unleashing engineering talent, right? In a world where software is taking over everything, engineering talent, building great products, I think that's one way where you can actually, play this digital game very well in this new world. So what Google is doing is actually trying to foresee where the future is going to be, right? So if you look at a lot of providers right now, cloud providers, they're focusing on what we call the first and second wave, right? First wave is where it's pretty much co-location, right? So a lot of people, they just, they put racks on the data center and they call it. And then there's also the second wave where they have already virtualized things. However, you notice that a lot of these things are very manual, right? So you're going to have operations people doing what we call user management. You're going to have user configuration, user maintenance, right? And where Google is going towards is what we call intelligent services and automatic everything. So they will actually run and manage as many things as possible for you so that you don't have to do that. And it's actually much more cost effective than if you were to do it yourself. So Google Cloud, or rather GCP, Google Cloud Platform, aims to meet you where you are, but take you further than where you thought it's possible. And the later part of my presentation will share why this is the case. So the cloud difference, right, is that we're going to have four main points that differentiates Google Cloud. The first thing is that you can help you to unlock the value of your data, right? So using things like machine learning and all kinds of highly scalable databases, you don't just store your files, but you can find them quickly, as well as be able to create what we call machine learning and run insights on it. It's also a great platform for you to deliver modern applications, so you can build new apps or modernize new ones. And then there's also what we call a future-proof foundation, right? Besides building apps, you got to run your network, you got to make sure that security is done properly, and pricing is also very good. So all these things are available as part of Google Cloud Platform. And on top of that, we want to bring the best of Google to you. So we have things like G Suite, Google Maps, and even Chromebooks. So all that, right, actually is a big differentiator because you can put everything in one massive platform to run everything in a place that you're very familiar with. So let's talk a little bit more about what we call the future-proof foundation, right? Any big building needs a good foundation. And so, we got to talk about what we call the lift and shift method. A lot of companies, when they want to go to the cloud, the first thing that they want to tackle is what they call lifting and shifting. You lift up the servers and you shift it to the cloud. But we think of it slightly differently. It's not just about lifting and shifting. We think of it as moving and improving, right? So if you were to look at what Google Cloud offers, it offers what we call per minute billing, right? So you can have your cost to be truly elastic. You only pay for exactly how many minutes your servers are actually using. And then there's also custom machine types, so you can get exact machine types without having to over provision and pay too much. We even have what we call automatic app sizing recommendations. So app sizing recommendations will ensure that you do not overspend on your servers as well. Super fast startups, VMs can boot up in seconds, not even minutes, and that's the power of the Google technology. There's also high throughput storage at no extra cost, sustained use discounts where the more you use, the more discounts you get. You can also resize this on the fly, so you don't even have to basically shut your server down. And we also offer tools for what we call live migration, so you can have much less downtime. So all this allows you to move your existing systems quicker and improve your operations in a very fluid way. The other thing about Google Cloud is that it's got a lot of locations. We call it planetary scale computing. And if you look at this globe of the world, these are some of the locations where Google data centers are. And of course, why these locations are chosen is because, of course, of accessibility, political stability, things like even no natural disasters and things like that, right? These are some of the reasons why some of these regions have been selected, where there are high population densities. So this shows you all the different regions which are already in place, as well as are on the way, right? And of course, just to share with you, Singapore's data center actually opened in April, and it's got launched in May, and so it's actually been running for a couple of months already. So for those of you hoping to move your applications into the Singapore zone, I think this is definitely a very good time when you can actually consider putting it in Google's data centers. The other thing about cloud, right, is not just about having lots of servers or very fast servers. You have to make sure that you have a very good network backbone, because half the battle is won when you can actually transfer information quickly to where all your end users are. So that's where Google has a very big advantage, because in order to serve its 7 apps that have more than 1 billion users, it's got to build a really fast network across the world. So they have been making such investments in even building their own submarine cables across continents. So with a global network that has more than 100 peering locations, global load balancing with a single IP, global content delivery networks, edge locations in virtually every single country, seamless auto-scale to be over 1 million queries per second with no pre-warning, and the world's largest software-defined network, this is a scale that very few other providers can match. And the other thing is, of course, the spending as well. Google as a company is reaching its stock market highs as well as cash balance. So it has been increasingly putting a lot more capital investments into its network and infrastructure. And this benefits you because this comes out as innovation, this comes out as more data centers, as better connectivity. So this is the 3-year trailing CapEx investment that Google has been putting in, and I'm sure very few other cloud providers can match up to this. I just want to show you something interesting. This is a like a satellite satellite picture, right, of a Google data center in South Carolina. And in the next slide, I'll show you the Stanford University Stadium. Right, maybe not everyone has got a chance to go over the Stanford University Stadium, but this is about the size, or even in fact bigger than the Singapore National Stadium. The Singapore National Stadium holds about 60,000 people. This is a stadium that holds 80,000 people. And you just compare the size. This is meant to be a one-to-one kind of like scale in terms of map scale, right? So you can see the size of the football pitch, right? It's actually, you can easily throw it inside the one of these buildings. So this is a huge data center that is powering the GCP. And the other thing about these data centers, I mean, another point you can look at the scale of this data center is actually the cars in the middle, right? The car park. So you can see how small the little cars are. So the data centers are really very huge. And the other thing about it is that they're also divided into zones. So if you look at the middle building, that's probably where there's an office, but there's a left, a middle, as well as a right zone. So the reason is this, because usually a lot of data centers have multiple zones, and each zone has its own redundancy, right? What it means is that it's got its own cooling power, its own power supply, its own emergency cooling supplies, everything is redundant. So that in case one zone goes out, right, another zone is still available. So this is one of the key design principles when you are building any cloud platform. Make sure that your applications are running in multiple zones. The more zones, the more stable it is, because you can make sure that your apps do not go down even if there's a physical failure in the data center. The other thing is that this is the Netherlands complex. And again, it's a very big data center, and you can see that it's also works in progress. You've got multiple zones, and there's also a lot of what we call extra land that Google might actually be building another zone as well, right? And what's interesting about this is that besides having lots of cables and everything running through the thing, you can see some of the renewable energy sources which are close to it as well. So Google is also aiming to be a green company and trying to make sure that as runs its data centers, it's actually using as much renewable energy as possible. The other thing about using renewable energy is that it's not only using renewable energy, but it's also using some of its AI to basically monitor usage of electricity, for example. So, for example, applying machine learning produce a 40% reduction in cooling energy. And all these, right, by saving on energy costs is how Google can actually bring low-cost computing, one of the lowest costs amongst all cloud providers, over to you. The other thing about Google, or rather moving to the cloud, that everyone asks for is, how is the security? Is my data secure when I move to the cloud? Google actually has a very comprehensive approach to security. And you can see in this diagram, there's physical security at the top as well as virtual security. So physical security is ensuring that the physical access to the data centers, who can go in, who cannot go in, having intrusion detection systems, biometrics, video analytics, ensures that only the right people are going into the data center. So that's the first step. And in fact, there is this kind of like separation whereby most Google employees have never even visited a data center and cannot even be allowed to step into it. Then, of course, there is what we call the virtual security, things like encryption between the customer device and Google, and having things like certifications out there. All these things help with the virtual security. Google has over 500 security experts, a reward program, as well as industry certification in ISO, PCI, and so forth for their data center. Another differentiator about the Google Cloud Platform is what we call the commitment to open source and APIs, right? Of course, you can use Windows and so on, all the paid systems, but you can also use a lot of open source systems. Google is a home of open source. A lot of projects have big contributions from Google, and customers love us because they do not get trapped by any software. So you can see a lot of these popular open source systems are available to be run on the Google Cloud Platform. So Quizlet is a startup company, traditionally started to use their own servers, but they analyzed everything and realized that Google Cloud Platform has much better core technology, and the pricing model is better in almost every respect. The next part is what we call the best place for modern apps, right? So I'm sure a lot of you are, maybe already building apps or thinking of embarking on building new apps. And the way you build apps today is drastically different from the way you would be building apps a few years ago. Even ourselves, we had our own personal experience. We see that the tools are much more mature and much more easier to build apps. However, right, at the end of the day, even though there's a lot more tools and everything, there's still a lot of steps involved, right? To get from a developer all the way to end user, you need to do things like selecting the right infrastructure as a service, set up your OS, do containerization, set up the storage, orchestrate the containers, do networking, monitor everything, logging, testing. So many things you need to do that require so many different skills from your people. With Google Cloud Platform, they actually package many of these things into managed services for you, right? So you don't have to be doing all the minute details of managing so many different platforms and employing so many people to do so. They've acquired companies like Apigee and Firebase. Apigee allows you to run API management. Firebase has an SDK for you to build great mobile apps on iOS and Android, as well as Google has been the creator of this thing called Kubernetes and container engine. So you can orchestrate a lot of containers on your platform. Then of course there are tools for VM migration, as well as full stack support for Windows, C# and .NET. On top of all this, there's also what we call the new and fastest path to app development. Traditionally, a lot of people still go through the whole process of setting up servers, and then they set up like a whole stack of things on it. Nowadays, as people are building new applications or architecting new applications, they are looking for what we call serverless driven development, right? So if you look at cloud functions, you don't even set up a server. You literally upload your code. For example, you just upload JavaScript function, right? So it just does one thing for a few milliseconds, right? And it will just charge you by the number of times that function is run. So you don't have to care about what's the specification of server, how many CPU size and everything. App Engine also does almost the same thing. You can write code, upload it, and then it can scale up quickly. Things like Container Engine can also run container orchestration. Firebase has a lot of tools for you to build your mobile apps. So all these are the fastest path for new app development. And if you choose the Google Cloud Platform, we guarantee you that you can accelerate your app development, make it faster, and of course, get it out there faster to end users. Reduce the deployment cycle. So the next step here is what we call getting the most from your data, right? A lot of companies have many obstacles to unlocking your data, right? They may have a lot of data inside their company, right? But maybe there's just too much time spent tending to the infrastructure. Existing databases are not scalable, transact or maybe not even transactional, right? And then there's also a lot of existing systems being very batch mode and not real time. Data is also stored outside of traditional databases, so it's very hard to analyze. And with big data specialists being increasingly expensive, it's very hard to hire them. Traditional big data takes up a lot of time, right? If you look at this diagram, this pie chart, there are many steps you need to do before you could get insights from your data. You need to program it, you need to provision server resources, handle the scale, make sure it's reliable, do deployment and configuration, do utilization improvements, performance tuning, and monitoring. That could take you 2-3 weeks just to set up and then to get the data out of your big data. But with Google, you can just focus on just 2 steps. Doing the programming, pass it over to Google, let them do all the scaling and processing, and all you need to focus on is the insights. So focus on the insights, not the infrastructure, and from batch mode, you just stream in your data so you can get everything in real time. So this is the approach that Google does with big data inside the Google Cloud Platform. So some of the products that you might want to look at would be Hadoop on Compute Engine, Cloud Data Prop, which allows you to do a fully managed Hadoop, Spark, or Hive instance, right? So instead of even setting up Compute Engine instances, you just turn out the clusters in 90 seconds or less, and you just pay per minute as you process your data. And then we also have this thing called Cloud SQL, which can run on Postgres or MySQL. It's fully managed. It's able to automatically backup, replicate, patch, and update the SQL server. So a lot less things that you need to be doing to run your data systems. Google also has a very popular product, which is called BigQuery. It's an enterprise cloud data warehouse. It's fully managed at a petabyte scale and serverless. So you can scan a terabyte in seconds and a petabyte in minutes. This is unheard of. If you were to run your own infrastructure on your own, this is actually going to be much more expensive for you to do and to run. So with this pay as you go, or even flat rate pricing for high volume customers, you can really run your data analysis in real time and get your insights much faster. Cloud Data Flow also can help you to develop what I call a fully managed data pipeline. So it's able to take data from your sources, pump it into Google Cloud Platform or even BigQuery, and able to do transformation, ETL data transformation, and then you can then get your insights faster. So people like Lloyd's Banking Group, right? Right at the start of my partnership, we were able to reduce time to insight from 96 hours to just 30 minutes. Imagine that, right? Something that took them almost a week, 96 hours, to achieve 30 minutes flat. So the head of analytics is very happy with the Google Cloud Platform because it's able to get things down to such a short time. They can focus on what really matters to drive their business forward. Ocado also, it used to take them half a day to rewrite something. no, it used to take them over 6 months, right? But now it took them half a day. So speed improvements like this can help you to be much more agile in your business. Spotify as well, I use it a lot, and they actually use a lot of Google Data Center. They actually move almost a whole infrastructure onto cloud platform, including the music and all the machine learning. One thing I really like about Spotify is that it's actually able to introduce music that by analyzing the music that you played before, right? So it's able to spot what kind of style of music you like and then actually recommend and build an automatic playlist for you. So you should really go and try this feature called Discover Weekly, and it actually gives you more and more new music recommendations as you actually listen to your music. So these are some of the possibilities, right, of machine learning and data engineering that can actually help build innovation inside your company. The other thing is that there's always this big debate about SQL or no SQL. Well, the good news is with GCP, both of them you can actually run them. So you can choose which is the one that you want to run inside your platform. If you are choosing to run SQL, then do take a look at what we call the Cloud Spanner product. This is a global database service. That means it's something that can run all across the world. If you're going to have an app that's going to have like 10 million, 100 million users, running on a traditional database or MySQL is going to be very, very troublesome, right? You're going to have problems scaling up the database. So Cloud Spanner is the first horizontally scalable, globally consistent relational database. It's fully managed. You just use ACID and SQL queries, but it's able to scale to hundreds of, not thousands of nodes across the world, right? And so it's been used within Google for years to drive many of its products, including Gmail. And Google is now exposing to you so that you can actually use it as part of your product development. So something like this is very, very special to Google that no other providers can have. And in fact, a lot of people work on the industry. This is actually stronger than even Oracle database system. Cloud Spanner is, in summary, is the best of both worlds, right? It's able to use schema-based in queries. It's able to use SQL. It's got strong consistency, high availability, horizontal scalability, as well as automatic replication. So it's able to be the best of both relational as well as non-relational databases. Here's a quote from Gartner. Cloud Spanner is not just software. It is the union of software, hardware in the form of atomic clocks in Google data centers, and an incredibly robust network connecting their data centers together. So it's not just writing code. It's a lot of investment and a lot of operational expertise that Google excels at. Quizlet, again, they used to use MySQL, and now with Cloud Spanner, it was the most compelling option for them to power a high-scale relational query workload. That's the performance and scalability of a NoSQL database, but can execute SQL. So this is something that startups like Quizlet are looking at because they can offload a lot of these scaling issues over to Google. The next part we're going to talk about is machine learning. This is the buzzword in the industry now. A lot of people are talking about machine learning, and a lot of people are also thinking about introducing machine learning. And Google Cloud Platform can be a great way where you can start to make use of some of the innovations that have been pioneered within Google and incorporate it into your own product. So unstructured data accounts for 90% of enterprise data. That means you can have all kinds of data and structure everywhere. And machine learning can help you to make sense of it. The keys to a successful machine learning effort, right, comes from three main things. The first is you must have a very large data set. Second is you must have very good models that can, basically simulate the brain, right? And then of course you need to have a lot of computation power. And all these are ingredients that are easily available within the Google Cloud, right? So with machine learning on Google Cloud Platform, you can do two things. You can use our models, which is fully pre-trained and it leverages Google's domain expertise and no tools or expertise required, or you can train your own models by building on your own specialized domain expertise. Use Google tools for building and training the models. Let's talk first about Cloud Vision API, right? What is Cloud Vision API? It's basically a system whereby it can understand images, right? And that's a very, very challenging problem traditionally, right? What is an image? How does a computer know how to see, right? So with Cloud Vision API, you can do what we call face detection. So you may have, for example, an image. It can tell you how many faces are there, how many people are standing inside the image. And then you can then maybe do some kind of photo tagging, right? You can do logo identification, right? So you can do content analysis. You can do label identification. So for example, you can label that this is a leopard or a cheetah, you know. You could do explicit content detection. So if you see that certain things are explicit, you can tag it. You can do OCR, so you can read the text on an image, right? You can read, like, for example, shop signages or like all these kind of like street signages, or even you can detect certain landmarks. So how is this useful? For example, a lot of e-commerce providers are using explicit content detection, right? To make sure that when people upload, for example, images of products to their e-commerce store, right, it doesn't show up as some adult content, for example. So Cloud Vision allows you to do that from a very simple, powerful API. You send in the image, it tells you, it returns back information about what is inside the image. There's also Google Cloud Speech API, whereby you can do speech to text conversion. So for example, nowadays the rage is to create what we call voice interfaces, right? So people can talk to an application and is able to understand, right? So things like Siri, Google Now, all these are voice applications. And this can also be incorporated inside your application. So you can, for example, allow people to give voice-based commands to your application, right? And this is done in multiple languages even. The other thing is natural language analysis. You can now derive insights from unstructured text. So imagine this paragraph of text out there. For a computer to understand the context is not so easy. But if you apply, for example, natural language detection, it's able to pick out certain key terms inside there, and it's able to tell you that, okay, Google is an organization, Android is a consumer good, Mountain View is a place, Consumer Electronics Show is an event, and of course, Sundar Pichai is a person. So things like this can help you to do contextual or even what we call sentiment analysis on your text. And it's very useful if you have very vast amounts of textual information. You can understand what's going on in all these communications. Of course, the other way is you can use all the different products, combine them together, cloud storage, BigQuery, Data Lab, and the cloud machine learning APIs, and then you can use them, build your own data, build your own models, right? So Google has created this thing, the Google Brain team has created this thing called TensorFlow. It's a machine learning SDK, and it's actually very, very popular now in the market where people are building their own machine learning models to train all kinds of things. And then, of course, there's this thing called a tensor processing unit as well. Google has collaborated with NVIDIA to create their own GPUs. So as you know, with GPUs, you can actually process AI things much faster. And so they are actually putting all these things inside the Google data centers, Google Cloud data centers. You can rent compute instances with GPUs, tensor processing units, and you can run your data models on it. So all these things allow you to quickly get into the machine learning wave without too much investment. So people like Airbus have been using this to analyze their satellite images. For example, do you know what's the difference between snow or clouds, right? These are all white color things. So with machine learning, it's able to reduce error rates from 11% to 3% in critical process of correcting satellite image maps. Ocado also, they are actually using machine learning to actually understand what people are typing into their website. The Global Fishing Watch is actually using machine learning to predict and analyze where illegal fishing could possibly happen, hotspots for illegal fishing. So very interesting, right? If you can get more data into your system, you can actually do some prediction. We encourage you to go to the Google Cloud Platform website. Look for a couple of these demos, right? There's the Translate demo, the Natural Language demo, the Vision demo, as well as, as well as the speech demo. So do go to these websites to check out the demonstrations, and you can try many things. Like for example, you want to try the Vision API, just upload an image into it, and you'll be able to see some kind of analysis from the Vision API. So what we want to do here is to bring together the best of Google, and GCP is now core and central to the whole Google Cloud mission. But besides that, there's also linkages to a lot of other things, right? A lot of our customers love using G Suite as their communications tool. They use Chrome as their browser, or even use the Chrome devices in their offices. There's also Google Home. Google Maps can be integrated in your applications, things like Google Analytics and even Android. So it's a whole ecosystem that actually Google has that you can use to digitalize your business, and of course, address and you know scale up and grow your business even bigger. So there's a lot of things inside this whole ecosystem, and I'll be happy to talk more maybe later at the Q&A. So in summary, Google Cloud Platform is not just thinking about now, they're also thinking about building what's next. Okay, so with that, I end the presentation. We hope, thank you very much for attending our seminar. We hope you have found all these things very interesting. In the chat box, we will be putting a little feedback form. Please click on it. You open up a Google form, and you can actually fill in your details. We will be providing you a certification of attendance. So please do make sure that your details are correct when you enter this form. So with that, I end the presentation. I'll turn off the screen share now, and we will basically move into what we call the Q&A mode. Okay, finished presenting, and now we see we have quite a few viewers actually on the webinar. Well, I think if you have any questions, do put it into the chat box on the right inside your YouTube. On the right hand side, you'll see a chat box. I think quite a few people have been entering some comments. So if you have any questions or what, I'm happy to spend a few more minutes to run a Q&A. Yeah. Oh yes, the link has been pasted into the form, into the chat box already. So please fill up the feedback form. We really appreciate it if you do give us your feedback on the seminars, on this webinar that we are producing. Let us know, how can we do better, or even what kind of content you'll be looking to hear from us in the next seminar. Maybe I'll just wait a few more minutes if there's any questions. Not sure if okay, I believe we may not have so many questions at this point of time. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending our webinar. This webinar will actually be recorded and put onto our YouTube channel. So if there's any future questions, you can of course contact any of our team members or just email to us as well. So with that, thank you very much. Have a good weekend. We wish you all the best in your cloud journey. Thank you very much. Bye bye.